What's going on, guys? Do you have various fuel canisters sitting around that you don't know what to do with? Some that are partially full, some that are empty, some that are in good condition, some that are in not so good condition. If that's the case with you, then you're in luck because we've got this little device here that helps take care of a lot of that. A fuel transfer device like this one can really help manage all of the different cans that we have of fuel and be able to help us to know exactly how much fuel we have in each can, help us to dispose of cans that we maybe need to get rid of, and help us to just consolidate some of that that fuel. And so we don't have to have all these partial cans out here and taking up space, and you can actually kind of manage it. However, with anything, there are pros and cons to using something like this tool. One of the pros that I think is definitely worth mentioning is the fact that it's way more economical. If you take a bigger can like either of these and you look at the cost for one of these versus the cost for maybe one of these littler cans, you're going to notice that the littler one is not much less expensive than this big can. However, carrying this big can in your pack, if you don't need it, if you're just going out for an overnighter or a 2-day, 3-day, this is maybe going to be more than you'll ever need on a trip like that. So you might opt for one of these smaller cans like this when you're out there. But that said, since that is the go-to size can for most people anyway, I think that we end up going on a trip, we cook a few meals, and we come home and we've got maybe half a can, quarter of a can left. But what do you do with that on your you don't take it on your next trip because maybe you think, well, I'm not going to have enough fuel, or you end up taking 2 partial cans, and the can itself can add up as far as weight goes. So definitely something you want to consider when packing multiple cans. And so if you use a device like this, again, you can consolidate those partials and make one of these cans be full, and then you can just have either leave the empty can sitting at your house or dispose of it and be able to kind of declutter a little bit. The next pro that I would say is the fact that and I mentioned this already, but it declutters your space. You end up not needing to have all these cans around, needing to have all the kind of partials and everything sitting there and wondering, what do I do with them? So that is a definite pro. And I would say the third pro that I wanted to mention is the fact that since you won't be purchasing so many of these little cans, in essence, you won't have so many of these cans going into the landfill and being just sitting out there and not doing anything, just kind of filling up landfills. So definitely, if you are going to throw away one of these cans, however, make sure that you are disposing of it properly, punching a hole in this. I would suggest to use all of the fuel first. If you aren't sure if it's empty, you can shake it and you can hear it. If you can't hear anything, then put a canister stove on here and just light it and let it burn out. And then you know that it's empty or pretty dang close to being empty. And then puncture a hole in it. Just a tip as far as disposing of these. Now, some of the cons that I would say are that some of these cans say do not refill and whatnot. However, I've been using this thing and I've never had any issues. If you have had any issues with using one of these, then negative or positive, please leave it in the comments. Especially if it's a negative and an adverse experience with using one of these, I think that it's important for us as a backcountry community to be able to learn from each other and be able to know what things we should watch out for, things that work, things that don't, just getting cautions. So yeah, leave it in the comments if you've used one of these and you have had an adverse experience to using one of these fuel transfer devices. One of the other cons that I would say is that when you go to empty one of the cans, when you're transferring from one can to another and you think that that can's empty, it's usually not empty. It doesn't really transfer all of the fuel out of it. If there's just a little bit remaining, as I mentioned already, you can attach your propane canister stove onto here and just burn out the rest, any remaining fuel that is in the can. So let's go ahead and talk about how this thing works. This little device here, it's got two valves on it, or two parts where you can screw a can on. You've got the top and then you've got the bottom. This is the output and this is the intake. So you're going to put your output can on here, the can that you're taking fuel from, and you're going to screw your intake or receiving can onto here, and the fuel will go through here and it will come out into here into the other can. There is a purge valve right here, this little goldish color button, but you can press this if you need to release some of the fuel out. It will release fuel, I believe, from the outtake or from the intake, the receiving can, and it will, like if you overfill it, for example, that is something that you can do to make to release some of that fuel. And then also the other piece of it is just this little handle here. This works just like any canister stove that most canister stoves have one of these, but it's just that same little type of handle and valve, on and off valve. There's a philosophy that the receiving can, the one on the bottom, should be frozen or really, really cold anyway, and the one on the top should be warm. I have found, I believe that when the top one, the output can, is warm and the bottom one is even just at room temperature, you're going to get a really good transfer of fuel. I've also tried where the top one, the output can, is room temperature and the bottom one, the receiving can, is ice cold. That also does a pretty good transfer as well. But I don't think it works as well as the top being warm. I haven't really seen a huge difference in both of them. The top one being warm and the bottom one being cold. But I don't know. Again, leave that in the comments if you've used one of these and you found that it definitely works better for you, having the output can be warm and the receiving can be ice cold. Or if you have any other tips and tricks on things you've noticed as you've used this device, then leave that in the comments. We'd love to hear from you about your experience with it. So one tip I forgot to mention is to make sure that you're doing this in a ventilated area. I have a large window right here that I've opened, and it's definitely ventilated in here, so I'm not too concerned. When you get this hooked up, you want to make sure that you've got it oriented the right way. This one has an arrow on it and it says it's labeled in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. You always lose some fuel as you're screwing this on, so that's why you want to have this be ventilated and not breathe as much as possible. I've gone ahead and hooked the receiving can to the in, so it's going out of here and it's going into here. And then I'm going to go ahead, I've warmed up this can, and oops, forgot. I want to weigh this first. So let's go ahead and weigh this just to see where we're at. So let's turn on the scale. Throw this on here. So this is 156. That's the GSI can at 156 grams. 157. It just is going back and forth, but it's settled on 157. Oh wait. Make sure your units are correct. 162. There we go. It switched on me. 162 grams. and that's the receiving one. So I'm going to screw this onto here again. And then this one is warmed up. This is the output can. And I like to weigh this as well. It's not super important to weigh this output can, but I like to weigh it. And this is the jet boil, and it's at 377. So let's go ahead and hook this one up and get transferring some fuel. So this one screws onto the one that says out, because it's going out of this can. Whoops. It's going out of this can, and it's going to go into the other can. Get this thing threaded on here. There we go. All right. So we've got that connected. And I like to usually open this for about 5 seconds and then close it just to be checking where I am. I don't want to overfill this bottom can, the receiving can. So let's go. Okay, approximately 5 seconds. Then I'm going to detach the receiving can from this and see where we are. Just going to weigh it. So we went from 162 to 182. I'm going to connect it again. Okay, then we're going to open this again. Approximately 5 seconds. And I'm guessing we're going to be about 200 right now. Yep. So we're about 204. So it's filling with just the top one being warm. We're getting about 20 grams-ish of fuel going into here in about 5 seconds. So this one's now 204. I'm not going to go any further than with this one because I don't want to overfill it. That's probably, that's as much as I think should go into this can. And yeah, so there we have it. We just went from a pretty halfway full can maybe to a full can in, you know, not too much time. Pretty simple. This device is pretty awesome, and I've really enjoyed it. It's really saved me some money over the years with just being able to refill these smaller cans, or being able to just say, okay, I know I'm going to need this much fuel. I'm not going to carry extra fuel with me, so I'll just fill it up to however much I need for that trip. I'm going to have, you know, need 10 boils or whatever, and I'm going to fill it up to that point and kind of just know exactly what I'm taking. Then I can consolidate or save on some gas, some fuel if you're really concerned about weight or all of that in your pack. Definitely a cool tool to check out. Again, if you have had any issues with this thing, if you use a different brand and you found that it works better or maybe not as good as this one, I think they probably all work about the same. Leave it in the comments. If you've had any other experiences, good or bad, leave it in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to do that. And click the like button if you liked this video. Hopefully you learned something, and stay safe out there.